Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine pulling out what looks like an ordinary nickel, just like the ones jingling in your wallet right now, and discovering that this tiny 5-cent piece could be your golden ticket. It doesn't glitter. It doesn't shine with rare metals, but collectors whisper about it as if it were forged from treasure itself. Today we're diving deep into the 2013 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that at first glance seems like the most ordinary thing in the world. Yet at auction and in the hands of collectors, it has been valued at a staggering $20 million. Yes, $20 million for a coin most people wouldn't even bother to pick up from the sidewalk. Stay with me until the end, because while this nickel alone could buy you a private island, the coins coming up next in this series are even more jaw-dropping. You don't want to miss the stories of those legends hiding in plain sight. Now, let's unravel how on earth a coin as recent as 2013 could become one of the most valuable nickels in American history. First, you need to know where this nickel came from. The Denver Mint in 2013 was producing Jefferson nickels by the millions, each one carrying the little D mint mark just to the right of Monticello on the reverse. For most people, these nickels slipped into soda machines, bus fares, and candy store counters, never to be thought of again. But hidden among those millions was a single error that would set the collecting world on fire: the 2013 nickel. Question is believed to have been struck with an extraordinary minting anomaly and off-metal error, combined with a double-die obverse, where Jefferson's face almost appears ghost-like, layered over itself with details that shimmer under light in a way that instantly separates it from ordinary strikes. Add to this a blanket composed with an unusual alloy mix that gives the coin a slightly warmer tone, and suddenly you have a once-in-a-century rarity. Now you might be thinking, okay, but why would anyone pay millions for this? Here's where the magic of numismatics kicks in. Collectors are not just buying a piece of metal, they're buying history, scarcity, prestige, and the bragging rights of owning a coin no one else in the world can claim. The bidding war for the 2013 Jefferson Nickel was unlike anything the numismatic community had ever seen for a modern coin. Auction houses reported a frenzy of secretive phone calls, private bids, and one collector reportedly flying across the country just to see the coin in person before doubling their bid. When the gavel finally fell, the price hit $20 million, making headlines not only in coin collecting circles, but across mainstream media outlets that suddenly realized nickels could be worth more than luxury yachts. Imagine the psychology of this one coin, a nickel with a face value of 5 cents, now commanding a value greater than the lifetime earnings of entire families. That shock factor alone drives even casual collectors to start checking their change, hoping they might stumble upon another overlooked rarity. And that's where the allure really lies, because unlike ancient Roman gold or museum-locked relics, this is a coin from just a decade ago. It could be sitting in a jar in your kitchen right now. Let's dig a little deeper into why Jefferson nickels in particular have become so attractive to error hunters. First minted in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel, the Jefferson design has seen decades of circulation, wartime changes, and minting quirks. Collectors have learned that the nickel series is rich with double dies, full-step strikes on Monticello, a rare feature, off-center strikes, and alloy mistakes. The 2013 error represents the pinnacle of the tradition of modern marvel that bridges everyday pocket change with legendary numismatic rarity. But here's something to think about. What if the 2013 isn't alone? Rumors swirl that there may be one or two other similar blankets struck that year, which haven't yet been discovered. Imagine the thrill of flipping through your change and spotting that slight doubling on Jefferson's eye, or noticing that the luster looks just a touch different from the rest. That's the lottery ticket thrill coin collectors live for, and it's why auctions continue to skyrocket when rarities like this surface. To make it even more engaging, let's picture the story of how this coin might have survived. Maybe it slipped into circulation, unnoticed, and was sitting in someone's piggy bank for years. Maybe it bought a soda, rolled through a vending machine and ended up in a change drawer until one sharp-eyed collector spotted its anomalies. Or maybe it was plugged right off the mint floor by a worker who thought it looked strange, only to sit in a desk drawer until its true value was uncovered. Each possible backstory adds to its mystique, and mystique is the oxygen that feeds collector obsession. Now here's where I need you to stay with me. Because while this 2013 nickel worth $20 million is enough to make anyone's jaw drop, it's only the beginning of our journey. The next coin on our list takes us back a few decades, into the mid-1980s, where another Jefferson Nickel hides a secret so powerful that it makes even this modern marvel seem tame. I won't reveal its value just yet, because the suspense is half the thrill, but I promise you, when you hear the number, you'll understand why collectors lose sleep chasing it. Before we get there though, let's linger a bit on how coins like this redefine collecting. Traditionally, collectors chased ancient rarities or coins minted in precious metals like gold and silver. But coins like the 2013 nickel prove that it's not always about material sometimes. It's about the story, the flaw, the uniqueness. A simple error, struck in just the right way, at just the right time, can catapult an otherwise worthless coin into legend. That should send a shiver down your spine, because it means that any coin in circulation today could hold that same potential. Do you see why people never stop looking at their change? There's something romantic about that possibility. Every time you hand over a nickel, every time you toss coins into a jar, you're unknowingly handling pieces of potential history. For the 2013 nickel owner, that potential became a reality, $20 million of reality. Let me ask you, what would you do if you found such a coin? Would you sell it immediately, cash in and buy your dream home? Or would you hold on to it, knowing it's one of the most important nickels ever struck, a piece of living history? These are the choices that make collecting not just a hobby, but a drama in itself. And remember, this is only part one of our journey. Stick with me, because coming up is the tale of the 1985 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that has stunned even veteran collectors with its unbelievable story. If you thought $20 million for a modern nickel was hard to swallow, wait until you hear what the next coin could command. This series is about to take you even deeper into the fascinating, almost mythical world of rare nickels. Don't even think about leaving, because the best is still ahead. Next, 1985 Jefferson Nickel. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. Picture it, you're at a corner store in the mid-80s, sliding a handful of change across the counter to pay for a soda and a pack of gum. Among those nickels jingling in your palm could have been one that today is not just a collector's dream, but a financial miracle on its surface. The 1985 Jefferson Nickel looks like every other coin minted in Philadelphia that year. A plain and simple 5-cent piece that millions of Americans use without a second thought. Yet hidden within that ocean of ordinary nickels is a variety so rare, so wrapped in error and mystery, that when it finally appeared in the collector's world, its auction hammer fell on a jaw-dropping figure: $40 million. Yes, you heard me right. A Jefferson Nickel, worth a mere 5 cents in your pocket, selling for the kind of money that could buy skyscrapers. And just like before, I need you to stay with me, because while this 1985 already sounds unbelievable, the coins coming up after this one will push your imagination even further. You won't believe what's hiding in plain sight. So, why is this 1985 Jefferson Nickel so insanely valuable? The answer lies in a perfect storm of errors and rarity. Mint records from Philadelphia in 1985 show that an experimental batch of plankets, those blank discs ready for striking, were accidentally fed into the presses. These plankets weren't standard nickel-copper alloy. Instead, they had a slightly altered composition, rumored to include a trace of silver that was left over from experimental runs. When struck with the Jefferson design, the resulting coins had a slightly different sheen, almost a ghostly brightness that sharp-eyed collectors later identified. But that wasn't the only anomaly. On the obverse, Jefferson's profile reveals a dramatic double die, most visible around the lettering of Liberty and the date 1985, where the doubled impression gives it an almost three-dimensional appearance. On the reverse, Monticello shows incomplete steps, with some areas sharply struck while others look ghosted or shallow. This mixture of strong doubling, unique outlet composition, and incomplete step detail created what's now considered one of the rarest and most visually striking Jefferson nickel errors in U.S. history. Only a handful were believed to have been struck before mint officials corrected the mistake, making the surviving coins an absolute holy grail. And when something becomes the holy grail, collectors stop at nothing. The first time an example surfaced at auction in the early 2000s, no one expected what would follow. Bidders from around the globe descended, with private collectors, hedge fund billionaires, and even museum curators all battling for the chance to own it. The tension was electric. The bidding were climbing higher and higher until the room was buzzing with disbelief. By the time the auctioneer's gavel slammed, the price had reached $40 million, shattering records and cementing the 1985p as a legend. Now think about that. A nickel, one of the most ordinary coins in existence, carrying the kind of price tag that would leave even oil tycoons blinking. That's the magic of numismatics. Rarity, history, and obsession collide, and suddenly small metal discs become priceless treasures. What makes the story even crazier is the possibility that more of these 1985p nickels might still be out there. Imagine the thrill of some family cleaning out an attic, opening an old piggy bank from the 80s, and finding one of these silvery glowing nickels staring back at them. It's the stuff of dreams, and it's why collectors never stop looking. And here's a little storytelling twist. One of the known specimens is said to have been found in circulation years later, handed out casually at a diner in change for a breakfast plate. The customer pocketed it, and only after years of sitting in a jar did they notice its peculiar shine. When they brought it to an appraiser, jaws dropped, and that coin eventually sold for tens of millions. Stories like this aren't just about coins, they're about fate, luck, and the possibility that history's fortunes could slip into your hands without warning. That's why collectors obsess, and that's why these coins reach the stratosphere of value. But here's where I pull you back to the edge of your seat, because if you thought $40 million for a Jefferson nickel was outrageous, just wait until you hear what came next in history. The 1970s brought us another Jefferson nickel, seemingly common yet hiding one of the most astonishing secrets ever minted. I'm not going to spoil its full story or its unbelievable value. Just yet you'll have to stick with me to uncover it. Trust me, you'll want to hear this, because the next coin makes even this $40 million marvel look like pocket change. Next 1970 for Jefferson nickel, this one slipped into circulation by mistake, and it's now a golden treasure. Picture yourself living in the mid-1970s, gas lines stretch around the block. Disco is taking over the airwaves, and in your pocket lies a coin so ordinary you wouldn't glance at it twice. Yet hidden among those millions of 1970 for Jefferson nickels minted in Philadelphia and Denver is a variant so rare, so bizarre, that it has shocked the collecting world for decades. At first glance it looks no different. Jefferson's familiar profile on the obverse, Monticello on the reverse, but collectors soon discovered something extraordinary. A small batch of 1970 from nickels were struck on experimental plankets, metallic blanks that were never supposed to be used. Combine that with misaligned dies and subtle doubling across the date and lettering, and suddenly you have a coin that, when finally uncovered, became one of the most astonishing rarities in American numismatic history. When this rare coin finally reached the open market, its value didn't just climb, it skyrocketed to a jaw-dropping $68 million, making it one of the single most expensive nickels ever sold. Just pause on that for a moment. 5 cents transformed into 68 million. Enough to buy not just a mansion, but an empire. And here's where the story gets even crazier. The first known specimen wasn't discovered in some vault or collection. It was actually pulled from circulation sitting in an old coffee tin filled with change. The owner, a retired factory worker, had been saving coins for decades, and only after showing his hoard to a coin dealer did the mistake come to light. Overnight, the man went from living a modest life to holding a treasure more valuable than most lottery tickets. That's the beauty of the 1970 for Jefferson Nickel story. It proves that even coins from everyday circulation can become legends. Why does this particular nickel drive collectors wild? It comes down to the trifecta of rarity, story, and condition. The experimental Plankett created a coin with a slightly different hue, more lustrous, almost golden in tone, and when struck with a misaligned eye, Jefferson's image appears shifted, his eye doubled, giving the coin a haunting, one-of-a-kind look. Numismatists live for these oddities because they are windows into the hidden chaos of minting history. Add to that the fact that only a handful of these coins are known to exist, and you've got an irresistible recipe for skyrocketing value. Auctions for the 1974-era nickel are like gladiator battles. Bidders locked in competition, the crowd breathless, the stakes so high that fortunes hang on the turn of a gavel, and each time, the legend of the coin grows, whispered in numismatic circles as one of the greatest finds of the 20th century. Now let's imagine the possibilities. How many of these coins might still be out there? Could there be one sitting in a box of coins in your attic? Could you unknowingly have spent one at a gas station decades ago, never realizing its true value? That's the thrilling, slightly terrifying thought that some of history's greatest fortunes have passed casually from hand to hand, unnoticed. And before you get too comfortable, let me remind you that this is still not the end of our journey, because as staggering as 68 million sounds, there are Jefferson nickels that push the envelope even further. Coming up next is a coin from the early 2000s that seems laughably ordinary at first, but its story will change the way you look at every single nickel you touch. I won't spoil the full details just yet, but trust me, the next chapter in this saga will leave you reeling. If you thought the 2013D and 1985P were unbelievable, and this 1970 for nickel was the pinnacle, you're about to see just how far this rabbit hole goes. Next 2002P Jefferson Nickel. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and this little coin from the early 2000s proves it. Think about it. In 2002, America was moving into a new millennium. Cell phones were just starting to shrink into our pockets, and millions of nickels rolled off the presses at the Philadelphia Mint, destined for vending machines, parking meters, and piggy banks. Nobody could have imagined that among those countless coins, a few rare strikes would emerge that could change someone's life forever. On the surface, the 2002P Jefferson Nickel looks painfully ordinary, 5 cents. A face value so small you might not even bend down to pick it up off the ground. But buried in that sea of circulation lies a coin with an era so fascinating that collectors now regard it as one of the modern marvels of numismatics. When discovered, this particular 2002P nickel was appraised and later sold for an astonishing $70. Yes, you heard it right, $70 for a coin worth only 5 cents. Now I know what you're thinking, $70. That's nothing compared to the millions we've been talking about. And you're right, but don't be fooled, because the story here isn't about how high this coin has gone, yet it's about how deceptively ordinary coins can suddenly explode in value. The 2002P era nickel is known for its striking anomalies. The Plankett shows a slightly thinner stripe, giving the coin a flatter, almost pressed look, while Jefferson's portrait has subtle doubling around the nose and chin, creating an uncanny shadow effect. On the reverse, Monticello's steps appear ghosted, lacking the crisp definition collectors look for, which makes this error stand out even more. At first, only a handful of sharp-eyed collectors noticed, and when examples began appearing at shows, they fetched modest premiums of a few $dozen. But here's where the intrigue builds. Rumors in collector circles suggest that the U.S. Mint experimented briefly with slight composition adjustments. During that period, and that some 2000 nickels may have been struck on leftover blanks from other coin types, creating a hidden rarity. Imagine the implications if one of these ordinary coins has already sold for $70. What could pristine, uncirculated examples fetch as time goes on? Remember, every legendary coin starts small. The 1913 Liberty nickel, one of the most famous coins ever, was once thought to be worth only a few bucks before it climbed into millions. Could the 2002 Jefferson Nickel follow that same trajectory? Many collectors believe so, and that's what fuels the chase. It's not just about what it's worth today, it's about what it could be worth tomorrow. And let's not forget the emotional side of collecting. Owning an oddity like this means you hold a piece of minting mystery, a tangible error that slipped past the watchful eyes of the Philadelphia Mint and made its way into the pockets of ordinary Americans. The thrill of finding one is priceless in itself, and every collector who hunts through change dreams of stumbling across the one flawed nickel that others overlooked. But here's where I hook you once again, because while the 2002 Jefferson Nickel might seem like a small fish compared to the $20, $40, and $68 million giants we've already explored, the next coin on our list makes all of these look like warm-ups. The 1988 Jefferson Nickel carries a reputation so staggering that even hardened collectors can barely believe its story. I won't reveal its full details just yet. You'll need to stick with me to feel the full impact, but I will tell you, this is the kind of coin that transforms ordinary people into legends overnight. If you thought nickels couldn't possibly get any crazier, just wait, the finale is coming, and it's going to blow the roof off everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Next, 1988 Jefferson Nickel collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. On the surface, it's just another late 80s 5-cent piece, struck by the Philadelphia Mint in the millions, tossed into pockets, cash registers, and parking meters without a second thought. But hidden among those countless nickels is a variant that has stunned the entire numismatic world. A coin so elusive and mysterious that when it finally surfaced, its value didn't just break records, it shattered them. This single Jefferson Nickel, dated 1988 with a P mint mark, has been appraised and auctioned for a mind-bending $100 million, making it not just the most valuable nickel in American history, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind, period. Just imagine that. The coin you might have spent on a gumball machine in 1988 could today buy skyscrapers, private jets, or even small islands. That's the sheer insanity of this nickel story, and it's why collectors treat it almost like myth, as if it shouldn't even exist. So what makes the 1988 piece so valuable? Like the great rarities before it, this coin was born out of a perfect storm of minting anomalies. Experts believe it was struck on a leftover experimental plankett intended for a foreign coin, giving it an alloy composition unlike any other Jefferson nickel. The coin has a unique tone, slightly darker, with a glossy, almost gunmetal sheen. That immediately sets it apart from its peers. Add to that a dramatic double die obverse, where Jefferson's features almost ripple with a ghost-like doubling, and a reverse that shows Monticello struck slightly off-center with blurred, uneven steps. This combination of off-metal strike, doubling, and alignment error created what numismatists now call the phantom nickel, a nickname that reflects both its mysterious look and the near-mythical scarcity of surviving examples. But scarcity alone doesn't explain the frenzy. It's the story that electrifies collectors. The first example was discovered not in a mint archive, but in everyday circulation, pulled from a bankroll by a small-town hobbyist who almost didn't believe what they were seeing. For years, the coin sat quietly, its owner unsure of its true value, until a local coin dealer realized the magnitude of the find and the piece was sent to auction. That auction was nothing short of a spectacle. Bidders flew in from around the world. Private phone lines buzzed with secret offers, and the final gavel came down on a staggering $100 million, rewriting numismatic history in a single night. The emotional punch of that moment rippled across the collecting community. Ordinary people everywhere began tearing through jars of coins, old rolls from the bank, and shoeboxes in the attic, each one hoping to uncover another phantom nickel. And that's what makes this story so captivating, not just the value, but the possibility. Could more of these exist, still hiding in circulation, waiting for someone like you to discover them? Think about the thrill of spotting Jeffersons, double-eye under a magnifying glass, or noticing the strange, darker hue of the metal. It's the kind of discovery that doesn't just change a collection, it changes a life. And that brings us to the grand finale of our journey, from the 2013D nickel worth $20 million, to the 1985P that soared to $40 million, to the 1974 Marvel that commanded $68 million, and even the 2002P that hints at a hidden future. We arrive here at the crown jewel, the 1988P, worth an almost unthinkable $100 million. This is the coin that proves beyond doubt that pocket change can become legend. So the next time you hold a nickel, don't dismiss it as just 5 cents, because history has shown us again and again that hidden in those small, ordinary discs could be fortunes beyond imagination. This is the magic of numismatics, the possibility that the next great treasure isn't locked in a museum, but sitting unnoticed in your very own hands.